Howdy, folks. This is Lightnin Wells, and welcome to the second installment of the Fooling Around podcast with me and Silas Albright. This time we'd like to feature my old friend Frank Greathouse. Frank is an old-timer in the North Carolina music scene and has had many years of experiences and has some great histories and stories to tell. Starting out playing bluegrass mandolin, he eventually gravitated towards playing blues music and selling as well as building musical instruments. Frank was a founding member of the New Deal String Band, the first recognized long-haired bluegrass band in the late 60s, who paved the way for future Newgrass groups and jam bands by adding a modernized playing style and a dash of contemporary rock music to the standard traditional bluegrass repertoire. Some of the musical highlights during his time with the group include performing at the famed Fillmore East in New York City in 1969, resulting in the band being signed to a major record label to release their first and unfortunately only LP. Also, he played mandolin on stage at a performance with the famed Father of Bluegrass, the one and only Bill Monroe, at Carlton Haney's Camp Springs Bluegrass Festival. And he was also credited by musician Sam Bush for inventing the jamming style of mandolin playing, which became essential to the development of the new musical genre known as Newgrass. Silas and I visited Frank at his home on March 5th, 2025, along with his lovely wife, Phyllis, where Frank sat and told his story. So grab a chair, give it a listen, and I hope you enjoy it.
I'm Silas Albright, thrilled to be here today with bluegrass legend Frank Greathouse in his home. So grateful to him for letting us here and going talk about some bluegrass and more than bluegrass too, his whole career. Just thank you so much for having us.
Glad y'all came down.
So you've been playing this music for a long time.
A long time, yeah.
From Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina boy like me. Yeah, can you just tell me a little bit about your childhood and kind of your first exposures to music and how you got into playing?
In junior high, we started listening to stuff like Flat and Scruggs and Porter and Dolly, and there were two brothers that had a show too on Saturday afternoon. And I got interested in folk music and finally convinced my folks to trade the accordion they bought me for a guitar, which thank God for that, and went to the art center to learn to play from a young lady named Lydia Fish, who was very careless about where the hem of her skirt was while she was teaching, which all us boys liked. So we were there every week and practiced hard. And she brought in John Peden and John Snakenberg, two local Raleigh hipsters. And when I got to where I could play a little bit, I'd go around to play with Marvin Pike. And he had Leroy Savage come over. Now, Leroy had a bad reputation. My mama found out about that and said, well, you can't go down there. So that was the end of that after a couple of months. But me and Leroy remained friends. Leroy had been kicked out of school. Some pep rally, he got drunk in a fountain. Drunk, and they put him in a coffin, and he rose up and started cussing out the principal. Out of here. But anyway, he could sing. The first time I ever met him, I was in Miss Dove's kindergarten class. They had him in at Christmas time, and he sang, God Rest You, Merry Gentlemen, I believe. That's the first time I ever heard him. I knew he could sing from an early age. So then I went to state, and of course everybody up there played guitar. And at that point, I could finger pick a little bit. I could make my thumb go back and forth, and play stuff like Railroad Bill and Freight Train was about it. But everybody up there played guitar, so if you wanted to play in a band with other people, you had to play something else. And I picked mandolin, had an old Stradolin, which was not all mahogany. It was a cool mandolin, though, because it had the long scale and the elevated fingerboard of the artist model Gibsons, although it didn't sound as good as the artist model Gibson. But I learned to play on that thing. And we had a little band up with me and Buck Peacock and Durwood Edwards and Dale Lee. Who played bass? Somebody played the bass. Don't remember who. And we called ourselves the Watauga County Squirrel Shooters because Buck and I were in the School of Design, which was right across from the street from Watauga, the girls' dorm. And we had big glass windows, and some of those girls were fairly careless about their blinds and all. That's how that name came about. We won a competition. We were all supposed to get color TVs, but since there were 5 of us, they shrunk to black and whites by the time we got them. And out of that, we somehow got a gig in Atlanta at Six Flags Over Georgia, which was like torture. They had us playing outside in the sun in the summer in Georgia in front of this ride where they'd all stand with their back against the wall. The floor would spin out from underneath them and spin around real fast. They'd get up and throw up right in front of us. So, and that was, who was in that? Leroy, me, Tom Glenn, Al Osteen, and Martin Beckman. And that was a good education because it was lots of practice, boy. 5 sets a day, 6 days a week.
So about what year would that have been?
Oh, Lord, that would probably been 69 or 70, something like that.
Okay.
But it was mostly valuable for the practice time.
Uh-huh.
I got a lot better that summer. Then went back to state. We had to change the name of the band for Six Flags. Don't know what they call. Oh, the Lick Skillet Ramblers was our name down there. So we came back. Leroy went to selling farm and garden equipment at Sears and Rocky Mount. I went back to school. Well, we somehow, I remember what it was. I had a ticket to go to Woodstock. Got to New York City, and they said, you can't go to Woodstock. So I went by and dropped off a tape at the Fillmore East, and they hired us. So by that time, we were the New Deal String Band. For some reason, Jim Fields came up with that band name, and that's what we got stuck with it. Kind of nobody really liked it that much.
So you were trying to go to Woodstock, and that's how you got your gig at Fillmore East.
Well, I had that tape and was going to try to get it by there on the way back, but we had the whole weekend in New York, and so I went on by and we got that gig. Got a standing ovation. The best we ever sounded in our lives to that point was in the upstairs bathroom at the Fillmore. Great acoustics.
What are you warming up for a rock band or?
Well, there was, a woman named Martha Velez and her band, and some other, the Third Eye band, and us. So we were acoustic, which was sort of limited, but we got a standing ovation.
Wow.
And we got this offer for the record deal from Seymour Stein, whose big hit to that point was Hang On Sloopy. Of course, after us, he signed Madonna, so we can't talk too bad about Seymour. But that was Sire Records. They wanted to do a record. So we made the record. And since we made a record, I was doing all the booking because nobody else would. So, people would get a job every now and then, but I did 90% of the gigs we had. So we took the record up, went to see, had a nice review in Billboard.
Wow.
A column about that long.
So was that review on the Fillmore show?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And took that and the record up to Carlton Haney to try to play festivals. And we did. He worked us all summer long for 5 or 6 years. Wow. Till the band broke up, actually. And it was funny. At some point, some guys came out from town. Oh, and on the way up to see Carlton, I taught Kenny Kosek how to drive. He's a New York fiddle player. He'd never driven in his life. He was maybe the most terrified I've ever been in a car, but we made it. So Carlton was had to draw something in the dirt for these guys, and he was bent over drawing, and his pants were split from crotch to belt loop. which I thought was hilarious. But we got along good with Carlton. He was a good guy, really. And we got on that festival up at Berryville, Virginia.
That's where he
His
did
first-
his first one, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, Fincastle was the first one.
Right.
I missed that. But right after that came Berryville. And, half of them liked us, half of them hated us. We got good ovations and stuff from the ones that liked us. The Rounder Record guys were there, and they loved us. And the sound crew was there, and they loved us. And because one of the things we did from the very beginning was look for one of the things I wanted to do, and Buck was a big instigator in this too. Again, at the School of Design, there were these big open rooms with drawing boards in them where you had to work because nobody could afford an apartment big enough to have one at home. So all kind of music would be playing in there. So I started hearing songs that weren't the same old Bill Monroe repertoire that work as bluegrass songs. And we decided we'd try some of those, and they worked pretty good. So Buck found a bunch of them. I found a bunch of them, and we even started to write a little bit. And we wound up doing about 3 of my original songs. Anyway, that worked out, and we had a good summer. Then Gene Knight, the original banjo player, was about to get drafted, so he enlisted in the Navy. And that changed a bunch of stuff. Buck and Al McCandless wanted to hire Bob Eisenhower, who was a banjo player from their hometown, Salisbury. And he was a fair banjo player, but a great MC. And so we played like that for several years, doing those festivals and having a lot of fun. We got to the point where we were working enough. We had a regular Tuesday night at He's Not Here when it was warm, which was like April to October, outdoors in the courtyard. I think we charged them $1 a head to come in there, and we make $600, $700 a night. It was great.
Wow.
And we played the Cat's Cradle and played more in Chapel Hill than we did in Raleigh. We played a bunch in Richmond and got to the point where nobody had to have a job for, a bunch of hippies. We were making plenty of money. And life was good. Then, let's see.
Well, you covered a lot there, but I'd like to circle back, if that's all right. I mean, that's
Okay.
that's a couple of really, really big, important things you've done. I mean, just what more do you remember about the Fillmore East? I mean, that's such a important place. So many big people played. I mean, you're there in 1969. Like, could you feel the magnitude of that moment at that time?
Well, yeah, I was all excited about it. So I was more excited than most everybody else. Al had to get up there, had to fly up there, and it was a terrible flight. Him and Gene both. So they weren't all that excited by the time they got there until they looked out and saw how big a place it was, how many people were in there, which it was 3/4 full, which is probably, I don't know, close to 1,000 people, be my guess.
Wow.
Big auditorium.
They stand up.
No, everybody had seats. They stood up when we played, by God, several times. And we
So-
got a big ovation at the end.
I'm just thinking that's got to be real influential.
That's what got us the record deal, which
Right.
got us the festival gigs, which got us blah, blah, blah.
kind of started it all. But
Yeah.
there must not have been much bluegrass being played at Fillmore East at that time.
No,
was it?
and I called, since we went over so well and got the good review, I called Bill Graham up again and said, you ought to have us back. He said, well, y'all are just a novelty act. That's what he said. So then we
crazy.
went on to play, all over. But it was great fun. Some guy walked in there after our show to the dress room, which was packed with about 30 people in a room about the size of from here to the door and back. I mean, it was tight. And some guy walked in and ripped open a paper bag. It was stuffed full of pot. So that scene got out of control pretty quick.
So what there some press about you guys? There's an article in Playboy Magazine or something,
I was mentioned in Playboy, yeah.
and you said mention something about where's the marijuana?
Yeah. And my mama heard about that.
hit it a little too
So
big.
what was the article about?
It was about the festival at Berryville.
Oh, okay.
And they were camped right. Whoever wrote it was camped like 2 down from us, and hung around us playing music.
It's partying.
And that was good. We had jam sessions up there at Berryville were great. We had Bromberg was a regular. Vassar Clements came by. Who was the high singer was the Stanley Brothers that played the bass? Jack, yeah.
Wow.
Jack and Curly Ray came by. So, I mean, we had legendary jam sessions
Absolutely.
at Berryville.
Well, yeah. Can you just kind of expand on what those festivals were like? I mean, you guys are really doing something different than traditional bluegrass, but
Well, we did enough traditional bluegrass to,
right.
and we were pretty fast,
Yeah.
which people liked. We could play fast. I think between that and doing some traditional and some new stuff, that was a really good mix of things to do. Because, the people that didn't like the hippie stuff could relate to Monroe stuff and Stanley Brothers stuff. And the people who liked the hippie stuff sort of liked the Monroe and the Stanley Brothers stuff too, which was good. And those festivals it was always something. I saw Jimmy Martin knock Carlton Haney down a hill in the mud one
You saw
time.
that?
I did.
That's a legend of bluegrass people still talk
What?
about.
I did
They
see
got
that.
rolling down the hill fighting with each other.
Yeah,
What was it about? What'd you see?
probably about getting paid.
Right.
But that's what most of them were. But Carlton always paid us. Of course, we were cheap, and it had rained the whole time.
So was it? I mean, it sounds like it. I'm not sure. Did you see it? Was it challenging at that time trying to share stages and spaces with people that you were kind of playing their style, but maybe not fully? I don't know.
I think most of those, like the Osborne brothers, Bob and Sonny, loved us.
Mm-hmm.
Thought we were great. Sonny Osborne came down and jammed one night, which was cool. And Bobby, when you got him out of the Osborne Brothers show, was a much better mandolin player than he was in the show.
They never give him much.
He could play pretty good.
So there's a picture of you guys on stage with Bill Monroe.
Oh yeah, that was at Camp Springs. He had
Was that engineered by
Carlton would have the bluegrass story every
Right,
Sunday.
Story. I was telling you about the bluegrass.
What's
story.
that?
It wasn't
They
story.
brought different bands. People that played different bands.
It wasn't story. It was story.
Right. We always waited for the Carl stories.
Yeah.
But how did Bill react to you guys?
Well, the good news is he wanted to play Dusty Miller, which we put on the record first. So we started off at our normal speed, which was pretty damn quick. And I think he gained a little respect with that.
Wow.
And then he and Leroy sang Sweetheart of Mine.
Whoa. And Leroy sang tenor.
Tenor. Leroy sang tenor to Monroe.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which So Bill didn't like us much, called us the Hair Boys. The story is, I didn't see this, but Jim Byram said that Carlton had to push him out the door to play with us, which I can see, but but Bill called us the Hair Boys.
Wow, that's pretty good, man. I mean, that's
Uh,
you can't get more legendary bluegrass than that. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I mean that Dusty Miller song, that one is crazy. I mean, when I first played this CD, the way you come in on that track is insane. I mean, how fast you played, like, and you said you didn't really start playing mandolin until later. I mean, you must have been practicing an awful lot, is what I'm
well,
trying to
that
say.
summer at
Flags.
Six Flags, and plus, mandolin is a very logical instrument. If you can play a lick in one key, you can play it in any key somewhere else on the fingerboard. You just got to figure out where to move it. And I guess design stuff and building things as a boy, I developed a pretty logical outlook on life. And so it was easy for me to expand quickly once I got going.
Makes sense.
And like I said, I was already a decent, crappy guitar player
I got you.
when I got to state. But I progressed a lot faster on mandolin than I did on guitar because that B string messes the guitar up for logic. You know what I mean, Lightnin?
Yeah.
It messes it up.
It's the hardest one to tune.
But anyway, we played one festival in Pennsylvania where you walk down the steps from the stage and there was the door to the bar. And we saw some bad behavior at that festival and probably contributed to some medium bad behavior. Leroy certainly did. Then one winter we had this was the big fight. One winter we had a gig at George and Tammy's Country Music Park down in Florida, down below Lakeland somewhere. Me and Kenny Kosak and Lynn Blackwelder, who was Quayle's girlfriend, rode in Lynn's station wagon because it was big enough to carry the three of us and the bass, and took off. We played a gig that night, and we got in the car and took off, and I drove us to the South Carolina line anyway, and let Lynn take over. Lay down in the back and went to sleep under the neck of the bass. And woke up when I hit the ceiling, looked out the window, and there's one of the rear tires rolling past us on the right.
Lordy.
So after, and got out of the car to flag down some help, and it started snowing. Well, we finally got a wrecker in the car towed and into a hotel, at like 2 a.m, maybe later than that. And Kenny and Lynn went on a talking jag, kept me awake. I was dead tired. So the next morning we get up, we got the car fixed by about noon and 1. They all stopped by the hotel and said, "Hey, how y'all doing? See y'all in Florida." We finally got the car and took off about 5 o'clock from Turbeville, South Carolina. I drove about as far as I could stand to drive, which was somewhere in Georgia. And so Lynn said she'd drive. She drove about an hour because she and Kosak stayed up all night talking. She got tired and I had to do some more driving. And finally wound up driving us all the way to George and Tammy's place and got in there. We were supposed to get there a day early. We got in there the day before we played. And Leroy was drunk and misbehaving, and I told him to shape up. And he yelled something at me, I don't remember what. And I got pissed off and swung at him and knocked the beer out of his hand. And he swung at me and fell down. That was the fight. But I remember one of the guys from the Goin' Brothers came up and said, "You guys really know how to have a good time." That was a famous festival. Also, my friend Sam Bush, Ebo slammed his hand in the car door and got his pick holding fingers. And I said, "Well, I'm finally going to have him this weekend. Damn if he didn't play with a thumb pick and still smoke me."
That's a good transition. I wanted to talk to you about Sam. I mean, so he seems to have credited you, like he's credited a lot. I mean, his band was a Newgrass revival. A lot of people talk about this Newgrass movement as kind of a big deal in bluegrass. But he credits you with kind of inspiring his wave. So I guess in your words,
He told me once that, I mean, I could always improvise. Part of that logical approach. Now, some people didn't like improvisation. They wanted to play the Monroe licks. But I figure after you'd heard the guitar play it, the banjo play it, the fiddle play it, the banjo play it again, something else will be fine. You know, blues is a improvisatory music. So, I was ready to improvise. Wasn't a problem for me to do that. Anyway, I figured that was one of my great strengths, and Sam said I invented the jamming style of mandolin, whatever that is. I called him up when they were in town for the festival, and he answered the phone. I guess it showed who I was on his cell phone. He said, well, how's my favorite six-toed mandolin player? Which brings back, Carlton Haney at one time suggested I put on a gorilla suit and played a mandolin in a cage.
I told you that.
We didn't do that, but I think Carlton was joking too. But
well, so I don't know. How would you describe the term Newgrass, or how do you feel about it? What's the difference? What are some of the differences between Newgrass and bluegrass?
Song selection mostly. And, Bill Keith started a banjo revolution, I think. There were a couple of guys, Bill Keith and Bobby Thompson, and come to mind initially. Later on with the Newgrass, it was Bella Fleck who took it another level. But Newgrass is the same old stuff with different words.
I like that. Wow, well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like we could talk about New Deal for longer. I mean, I hate to switch topics on you. Is there anything else about just stories or anything else you'd like to add about everything y'all did?
Well, we had another version of the band that was real good. Two, Eisenhower flamed out. Sometime wound up throwing a beer across the room and quitting. And Buck and Quail decided they'd go play it under the street in Atlanta. Actually, we got along really good with the country gentlemen. They were another one that sort of liked us.
They were progressive.
Sort of, yeah, they were pretty damn progressive.
But you went up to New York for a while with country cooking?
Yeah, I went up there. After the band broke up, I went up there. It was cold as hell. It was nice in September. Started snowing about mid-October. And I had
New York weather.
Right.
I had to dodge right on the Finger Lakes, which is, this one was 400 miles long, I believe, and about 2 miles wide, running straight north to south. So this wind came down that lake, blew up the hill in Ithaca, and just crapped on it. A couple of times a week, it seemed like. I was driving an old Dodge two-tone pickup truck, a 58. A beautiful truck, but it wouldn't go up that hill. It was like a mile going up the hill and to the right. I had to drive about 6 miles to get back to the house. My room was on the third floor of a house with one grate going down to the second floor. The second floor had 2 grates down to the first floor, which is where the heater was. So I woke up several mornings with a crust of ice on my water glass. And the money wasn't as good as it was supposed to be. So after about 6 months of that, I came home. The sun was shining, the birds were singing. It was 70 degrees. I said, see y'all later, guys. Sorry. But that was a good band, and I still, John Miller was in it. You know John.
That's my friend.
And
Tony Triska, Russ Berenberg, these guys went far in
yeah,
the field.
So about how long were you up there?
6 months or so.
Okay.
Went in August and stayed till January.
Right. Got you.
Saw Marty Stewart's first gig with Lester Flatt on the way up. It was 104 degrees that day. The hottest festival I've ever been to, except one time it got that hot at a Bob Dylan and the Grateful Dead show.
Was that at Pinnacle's Lester Flat Festival?
No, this was in Delaware somewhere.
Wow.
It was outside Wilmington. And it was hot.
All right. Before we go further into the future, I did want to go back because I think this is kind of important. So you said your first record with New Deal was on Sire?
Yeah.
London,
But
Sire, wasn't it?
Yeah.
it was an imprint of London. Is
Yeah.
that what okay, I got you. That's just what I wanted to check on. Okay. So did y'all just do the one record, or were there two?
Yeah, we, you know, the band got sort of dysfunctional when we started changing people and all that stuff. We made a few recordings, but nothing ever came of a record.
Did a lot of festivals
We still did festivals
and shows.
and played a bunch in Chapel Hill and Raleigh and Richmond mostly. And occasionally we traveled. Like I remember one time we got a gig in Douglas, Georgia at a big meat packing plant. Made $750 a piece. So, of course, we all went to a Western store and ordered up custom boots, which mine lasted me 20 years till they got soaking wet and fell apart. But, custom boots for my feet, with 6 toes.
You had room for that extra toe?
Yeah. That was like dying and going to heaven. I never thought I'd be able to wear cowboy boots.
You earned them.
I guess.
All right, so I guess going back, so you go up for New York for about 6 months. What's the next step for you after that? Did you come back to Durham? Or
Yeah, actually I did. Huh?
You stayed in Raleigh then?
No, I came back and stayed in the country outside Durham
Okay.
for a while till I found a place and a job and stuff like that. Got back into school. After I graduated, I wound up getting hired.
What's your degree? Graphic design?
My degree is, if you tell me what this means, let me know. Bachelor of Environmental Design and Product Design with a visual design option.
Is that in the art school? Or?
No, it's School of Design Graphics.
Okay.
that sounds pretty cool.
So,
But so you would put your education on hold to do this
yeah,
touring
had
and
to.
stuff, right? Of course.
Which meant that I had to pay my own damn tuition and all that stuff. But I did, and it worked out. I graduated, then got offered a job working at State at the Ag Extension, doing displays and exhibits, which was, I did that for entirely too long. But that got me back into listening to more blues and R&B. So me and Jack Lancaster at that period built that electric mandolin back there, which I will say in my best sounding electric mandolin I ever played. Seymour Duncan pickups, If I had to do over, I'd have switched the pickups, put the humbucker in the neck, but still it sounded great. And started playing it in a series of bands with my good friend Buster Quinn as the drummer, who just died.
He did.
He did.
Aw.
About 2 weeks ago.
I like Buster.
He was a prince among men. It made me sound good for about 25 years there. And Dale was the bass player. Newt was the bass player originally. And then he quit. We ran into Steve Chall, who was a great bass player. I mean, just state of the art. So between him and Buster, we had the rhythm in covered, boy. And had 3 girl singers and me and a couple of different guitar players.
So you doing New Orleans type?
A lot of it, yeah.
What was the name of this group?
It had several names. 6 and 7/8 was one. No Count was another one. The first name was Count Flambeau and the Lunatones. Then No Count. Then 6 and 7/8. The joke there was reach in the hat, put a bunch of names in the hat, reach in and pull out the label.
Well, the electric mandolin, that's pretty interesting to me. I've never heard of that. Had you heard of it?
Well,
before
Fender
you
actually
built it?
made one with 8 strings, and so did Gibson. But the 8 strings were kind of a problem because if they weren't in tune, it really amplified that dissonance.
So a lot of
And-
them are 4 and they sound like electric guitar. The most famous one I can think is Tiny Moore played one with Bob Wills, the Texas Playboys.
Except Tiny had a 5-string, which is just adding a C string, which kept the logic going and everything. But there's enough I can't play on 4 not to worry about 5, I always felt like.
So is that one of the first instruments you put together yourself? I mean,
in high school shop, I built a 12-string guitar from scratch out of mahogany, and the necks always warped on 12 strings. So what I used for a rod to keep it from warping was the central piece out of a car jack. So this thing weighed about 100 pounds. It probably weighed 25 pounds.
That's heavy.
But that was the first thing I built. And, bent the size and everything. Did it all. And it came out pretty good. And I played it for years till I left it to go to Six Flags. Left it in my apartment, locked in a closet, and somebody broke in and stole it.
Well, so, yeah, that seems like an interesting part of what you've done. I'm looking at this muffler. That's a mandolin?
No, that's a slide guitar.
Slide guitar, yeah, okay.
And it lights up and flashes and it smokes once a night.
So when did you put that together?
In Florida, some kid had bought in a K, what was the model number? It was a better K. It wasn't a Speed Demon, it was a... But anyway, they cut the top for humbucking pickups and ruined it as a guitar. Just ruined it. But it had a neck and the original pickup, which hung around and haunted me for a while. So I finally decided I'd build a guitar out of a muffler. Went down and bought one. It was really an engineering process because a muffler is not very stiff. Like you can take a muffler and it'll squeeze. You wouldn't think it would, but it does. So the neck joint, if you just screwed the neck from the back to the muffler, it was gonna go up and be a continuing problem to tune and stuff. So I had to come up with a neck block that went inside the muffler that would hold it. And I made 2 kinds, a wood one and a metal one. The wood one sounded more like an acoustic guitar. The metal one sounded like I wanted it to, which was a resonator that wouldn't feed back. But anyhow, so we went down to Wilmington, I bought a 3-foot-tall house in Raleigh, and we lived there for a while. Me and Phyllis got married and lived there a while. Put a new roof on it, because it's supposed to be the basement. And the people ran out of money. So I got 5 acres in this 3-foot-tall house from the road, it was cut into a hill. And back was all glass, had 2 creeks, beautiful property, should have kept it. But...
Then you have to live in Raleigh.
Huh? It was still Durham County.
Oh, okay.
It was out just north of Leesville Road.
Okay.
Out past the airport a little bit. But anyway, we bought an old house.
You had a boat.
Huh?
You had a boat in Wilmington.
Yeah, I built that boat.
Wow.
I built a boat when I started the company, Realizations. Had a big porch that wasn't getting used for much. Sold Realizations. We bought a house in Wilmington for cheap, like $42,000, I think.
Well, so what was Realizations? What was that company?
We made displays and exhibits for all kind of people. We did the bicentennial for Carolina.
Wow.
We did a bunch of work for State and Duke. We did, all kind of ways. Did a dancing pill bottle.
Wow.
Did an 8-foot pizza. Giant vegetables. For a set, For NC, that was a job for NC State, although I was working for myself. It was called the Backyard Gardener. And they wanted big old vegetables. But I had to do them flat because they had to store them. So that was quite a project and big fun, I thought. Did all kind of stuff like that.
So that sounds like a real successful business.
Did a bunch of real estate work too,
Okay. And
Sales centers and million 18 by 24 signs. I mean, I can't think of how many of them damn things I must have printed.
Wow.
But we bought this old house in Wilmington. Had the sailboat down there.
The sailboat that you built.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. How big was the boat?
It was about 15 feet on the water line, about 19 feet overall. Had a bowsprit and a long rake stem, they call it, the front of the boat. So the water line was here, and the length overall was out there. And it was best materials I could get my hands on, which is marine ply, West System epoxy, some stuff called cyanold polyester that was a non-irritating fiberglass substitute. Fiberglass, you sand fiberglass, you're going to itch for days. This stuff didn't do that to you. I think I used 10 gallons of West System epoxy, which is a lot, and had teak cabin sides and rudder and bowsprit and all that. It's really a beautiful boat.
So had you had experience boating before you did that, or is it just something you thought?
I'd been sailing a couple of times, and what I liked about it was quiet out there under sail. I mean, I have been on boats a little bit off and on my whole life. I sank the Presbyterian Navy at church camp, stood up on this old skiff, and a board came, popped loose, and it sank. We had a beach house for a little while, and my daddy's accountant buddy, Tom Crittenden, had a son also named Tom, who had a boat called a Y-Flyer, which was a serious racing boat. Of course, my folks didn't know that, and I didn't at the time, but we go out and flip that thing over a couple of times a day. But it was a slab, so it was fairly easy to get it upright, you know. It was no big deal. And I've been sailing with a guy named, what's Tut's real name? He was Phyllis's sister's ex, Carl Tut. And, you know, so I'd had a little sailing experience.
Did you sail that boat all the way from Wilmington when you moved to Florida?
No.
That was another boat?
That was a fast boat. It would go 70 miles down the highway.
Oh, wow.
An hour.
Well, yeah, so talk to me about kind of your life in Wilmington. Y'all owned a music venue, and that's how you and Lightnin kind
Yeah,
of
we sort of lucked in or unlucked into a place called the Ice House, which was a big courtyard right on the river. Beautiful place. Should have been a money maker.
Yeah.
But we had to have partners to do it, and one of those partners was Carl Tut. And I'd had a horrible day up on the roof scraping up the loose gravel so we could coat it with some plastic stuff called mule hide, stop the leaks, of which there were numerous.
It was his story.
The week before, we had a band, and this old black guy wandered in, said, "I'd like to play for you." I said, "Well, tonight we got a band. I can't do it, but come back Thursday. It's an open mic night. Be glad to put you on." So he showed up about an hour early in his suit, dragging his amp and a Oriental Les Paul copy with a neck you could move back and forth like that. And we fixed that. And Tim Duffy and the boys got him a real Les Paul later on, which was very nice, I thought. But that day Tut was up on the roof. He didn't last an hour. And most of the time he was up there, he smoked cigarettes. So I realized I was not going to get any help with the physical plan out of him, which was terrible. Then Herbert comes in, and he's there early, so we put him on first. And it was beautiful. The sun was setting over the river. A boat sailed up and blew the horn to start the show off. Herbert started playing. The third song he did was, "Today Has Been a Lonesome Day." And, man, I just started crying like a baby. I mean, Herbert was not the best guitar player in the world, but if he was playing around here tonight, I'd go see him.
Yes, sir.
You know, he sounded blues-like.
Won't I love him? Daddy and a great good on him, mama. Great God Almighty, Lord, I love him. Daddy and a great. God, that one I hate sees her every day. Won't I love God? Wild chalk put a good go, good on your mama. Great God Almighty, Lord, when I look out on wild chalk put a good go. Now she got something satisfy my soul. What I love, darling, what I crave to see, get on your mama. Great God Almighty, Lord, what I love.
He was living in a terrible place. And, you know, every time we went to sleep, they'd steal something from him. And we got him the first record and got him some festival gigs and got him out of that place into a nice little house. And he started playing all over, made another record, which was even better than the first, except his voice wasn't as good as it was on the first one that day. But anyway, Herbert, well, he was supposed to play a festival in Charlotte, and he went up there, got to his hotel. They were supposed to come get him, taken out to dinner. Nobody ever came. Nobody gave him a phone number and anything. He didn't have a cell phone. So the next morning, he went down to the bus station and went home. And after that, he had a blood clot in his leg. And he was about over that and ready to start playing again when they found a mass in his stomach. And it was cancer, and he was gone in 2 weeks.
Well, how did from what y'all could tell, how did he get so good at the blues?
His daddy played and his brothers played. He claimed to have been the worst of the bunch.
I think
But-
he had a lot of time practicing, and
Yeah.
nobody ever talks about it. But wasn't he incarcerated?
He was for a little while, yeah.
I think he played there, and he never talked about that. And I never asked. But
He got in some guy was messing with his girl, and they got in a fight and involved a knife.
a typical blues stuff.
Yeah, typical stuff. But so he was in there for like a year, I think.
Oh, I thought it was more, but I
Wow.
never asked.
So how long was it that y'all were working with them from that time he came in and then?
I guess about
6 years.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years, something like
Wow.
that.
Wow.
So, at the end of the summer in the ice house, which coincided about that time, Phyllis wanted to sell it. So, I said, no, let's don't sell it, let's buy them out. I'd bought a piece of property to put my shop in Wilmington for cheap, and had built a little building to expand it. And we're still doing that exhibit display work down there for people in Raleigh. I was a lot more selective, but in a way, I mean, the stuff I did was paid a lot better. So if I was working, I was at least making money. Had a great guy, Emil Metz, to help me. We bought a house in Wilmington for, I think it was $42,000, a Sears 4-square. Supposed to have been there, built 70 years ago. Turned out it had been moved to where it was 70 years ago. It was an old Sears house. But it was good wood. It didn't need much structural work. They built a bunch of rooms in there that weren't there and needed to go away. So I hired a guy with 2 broken arms to help me with it after he got out of his cast. Emil Metz, who's still a friend to this day. So I'm driving down to Wilmington saying, this is really going to suck. This is going to be awful. It's going to be dirty. It's going to take forever. Walked in there. Emil picked up a sledgehammer. And in about 20 minutes, the whole back wall of the house we wanted to get rid of and make windows was laying in the yard. And by the end of the day, all those walls were torn out. So I thought to myself, this may not be so bad. And it wasn't. That was a great house. But when we sold the ice house, I wanted to go somewhere warm where I could keep the boat in the water in the backyard. And that turned out to be Port Charlotte, Florida, which is just north of Fort Myers, 30 miles. And Fort Myers had a lot going on. Port Charlotte didn't have much, but it had a little. I had all these guitars, just been buying them, had about 20 or 25 by that time. No place to keep them, really. So I decided to open a guitar store, and I wound up getting Martin and Fender, which are two good lines and hard to get.
Absolutely.
And we were doing great guns, and we're looking for something else to invest some money in. And we were looking at a house out in the boonies, and we'd already bought one house and turned it over, and we were looking at another one. I had to go to Fort Myers for something and drove past this property right downtown, the big road coming in from the north, which was Fowler Street, and First Street, which went right through downtown, was the cross street. And one of my neighbors was the Burris house, and the other one was the Langford Kingston house, which are both two big old fancy turn of the century and older houses. And the property, I sort of looked at the elevation and realized it was pretty high up for Fort Myers, and that's a good thing in Fort Myers. It's right on the river. Mm-hmm. It floods. There were fish swimming down First Street. They had a video after one hurricane. But this place was where they built the fort pretty much, and they used to call it Safety Hill because it was the highest point of land in the county except for 2 Indian mounds. So it never flooded. But we opened another shop there, and we already had those lines, so we did pretty well for a while. Then Guitar Center came to town, and they decided they'd dig up the street at the same time. So if they wanted to get to us, they had to cross the bridge, turn around on the other side of the river, and come back, which hurt business.
Yeah. But you're playing blues down there.
Yeah.
You switched over to playing
Herbert did that for me.
Okay. But you switched to steel to slide guitar.
Slide guitar, yeah. Well, I was playing slide guitar, trying to before we went to Florida. In Wilmington, I was trying to. I didn't play it out much, but I was trying to learn, learning slowly. I had a Stylo, you saw that thing.
Yeah, sure.
I wound up trading it and getting a Tricone, which I just sold. I hated to see that one go too. That one and my good mandolin, I miss them every day. But I started getting more into blues and rhythm and blues because you can do it by yourself for one thing. And had 2 regular gigs. Had one at a hot dog place called What's Up Dog, which that was loads of fun. And then after that, she sold the business, got married. She was a lovely black woman from Chicago who knew about blues because her folks had owned a little bar that had blues. So we got along great. And they wound up being a music venue down there as long as it lasted. But when she went out of business, I went and talked to the guy who owned the oldest bar in town, Raymond Allen. And he had a back room there full of junk, so he cleaned that out and made a little bar in there. And I played there every Monday night for, many years. I am going to talk about Paulie right now.
Let's do it.
My partner in crime down there was I went to a thing called a guitar army they had, which was you bring your acoustic guitar and sit out on the banks of the river in a park, and everybody group up and play music. And they were playing, the usual crap, And there's one guy sitting there playing blues. I went over and introduced myself. And he said, nah, I don't want to play it anymore. I said, well, we ought to you. He said, well, we can play around the house. So we got him over, fed him, got to playing, and we had a little something going on. So we started playing together as screaming and crying. And we did that for, 6 or 7 years anyway, maybe a little longer. I still call him up every month or so just to check it. I still got a 239 area code because he'll never learn another number.
You might have said it. What's his last name?
LaRonde.
LaRonde.
L-A capital R-O-N-D-E.
Y'all did a CD or something, didn't you?
Yeah, we did a CD. We did 2 actually.
You've done it.
And we did a couple of festivals and played some good gigs. Got around pretty good. We played once at the House of Blues in Disney World.
Whoa.
Well, with Herbert. And they treated us and Herbert like shit.
Yeah, the House of Blues that don't play any blues.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of commercial.
So we get up and do a set, then Herbert do a set. And they liked that because we were a little more modern. And, Herbert was the bomb, though. And I decided I never wanted to play another House of Blues as long as I lived.
You don't hear about them much anymore.
You don't. They're still there, I think. It's all bullshit now. But me and Paul are still good friends and talk every now and then. Once a month or so, anyway. He sends me pictures of what he's working on, and I got to send him a picture of that mandolin. What else can we talk about?
Oh, this one thing I did want to ask about. I saw it mentioned on a YouTube comment was that there was a story written by Alice Gerard with you in it in Bluegrass Unlimited in, I think, 1997.
Yeah.
We couldn't find it. Do you remember that article? What was it
Yeah,
like?
I do remember the article. Just talking about the New Deal String Band history and all that.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of us were there. Quail, Leroy, Buck wasn't there. I think Gene was there. Gene Knight, the original banjo player.
So, was there a reunion show at some point, or there's a picture?
Yeah, we did a couple of reunions. We did one at 25 years out at Leroy's place in the country, and that was great, great fun. Had a beer truck. That beer truck wrecked a bunch of folks, including Leroy. We were wondering if he was going to be able to play the show, but he made it somehow. It ran right over Tony Williamson that night.
So you did one at Merle Fest?
Yeah, we played.
Leroy offended Rosalie.
Yeah, he
Tom's
did.
wife.
He did.
Cussed or something.
She was sitting right next to us, and Sam and the boys got up there, and Leroy stood up and yelled, "Play that mandolin, you motherfucker!" And that pissed off Rosalie. The one at the History Museum was tough. I had my wrist had crapped out on me. It was all swelled up about the size of a half a tennis ball. Couldn't hold the pick, so I had to super glue it on. You can imagine how well that worked. So I was disappointed in my performance at that reunion. But, I finally got to where I was allowed to sing in the New Deal String Band. We had Ben Runkle in it for a while. He never could quite hit the pitch, he warbled. And I always sang on pitch, so I got to sing. And Leroy finally realized that we had a pretty good sounding duet. If you listen to the record, my solo record, which, do you have one of those?
I don't.
Oh, I'll give you one.
Oh, please. I'd love it.
At the end, we did the Lead Belly version, older Lead Belly version of In the Pines. And you can tell we're from the same town because of the way we said "whar" at the end. But we had a pretty good duet when we wanted to.
Black girl, don't you lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? In the pines, where the sun
shivered till the cold daylight. Black girl, what have they done to make you treat me so? They've killed my man, caused me to moan, caused me to lose my home. My man, he was a railroad man, worked round Joe Brown's coal mine. The engine passed at 6 o'clock. They found him dead at 9. Black girl, where'd they find your man? About a mile and a half from town. His head was found in the driving wheel. His body has never been found. Leroy's still around doing pretty good. He's living in over a theater on Person Street in Raleigh. Pretty nice. He has to do gummies and stuff and roll one and walk down the block to smoke it. Leroy would go to this one place where they had cute waitresses, the Back Nine, and get drunk, order a pizza, ride home with the delivery guy, call up the next morning, order a pizza, and ride back with him to get his car.
What a great idea.
You have to love pizza, I guess.
Well, a question that might be kind of stupid, but I think your answer would be interesting. Somebody that's been in this bluegrass for a long time, I mean, real innovator of it. What's changed about it? What's changed about it?
Not much. I think they are open to more songs by different folks these days. I hope we had something to do with that. I'm sure Newgrass Revival did too. There's a lot of great technicians. There's a lot of great technicians with zero soul.
Yep.
But some of them got some soul to them. Like Sam Bush and Andy Statman, who's my pick for the best mandolin player alive. He took lessons from Grisman. And Grisman finally said, I don't have anything else I can teach you. And he went off on his own, and he could play anything anybody played and then some. One of my fondest memories were he and I were just sitting at Berryville on a log looking at the river, watching this little kid throw rocks in the river, and his dog would go fetch the same rock out. I don't know how he knew, and we wrote a little instrumental that we called Nay Lizard Lord. And it was a pretty good instrumental. There's more women in bluegrass now.
That's true.
Which I like seeing that. Some of them are damn good. Molly Tuttle and
Love her.
my mandolin was bought by a woman, A.J. Lee, and Blue Summit is the band. You ever hear of them? She's a pretty good player and singer.
My interpretation of bluegrass is that it's pretty progressive genre. There's a lot of young people that are pretty open-minded in it now.
Well, that's true, but as far as the rhythm, you need a good rhythm section, you need some drive, and you need some serious singing, and that has not changed. You can't get away with it if you don't have that. You see a bunch of groups that don't have banjo these days, which I don't know how you call it any kind of grass if it ain't got a banjo in it. And if you ask me, that Earl Scruggs was equally as important in having bluegrass music as Monroe.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Well, I don't know. I've been a big Don Reno fan too.
Well, he was great too, but
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, to me that banjo, that Scruggs style is an important part of it.
it's where you start, where everybody starts.
Yep.
We didn't really hit on what brought you back to Clayton. I mean, how long you been out here?
Oh, 7 years now. Phyllis wanted to be nearer to her family.
Mm-hmm. Closer to home. I get it.
Yeah. All our friends were up here still, except for Paulie and a couple others. But, you know, when we sold the property in Fort Myers, we moved back to Port Charlotte. Actually, Charlotte Harbor, which is even closer to the river than Port Charlotte. It's a little strip along the edge. And bought a house down there that looked like the Flintstone house, except the front window was square instead of round. And Phyllis was scared to death it was going to flood. So we sold that and moved on back here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm so glad we were able to do this. This is just,
Well,
I enjoyed this so much. Thank you so much for the
oh,
time.
you're very welcome. I was wondering if I ought to write a little piece about what I did before I croak here, you know, and this will do that for me. I
Okay.
don't have to.
Sitting all alone, half a six-pack's gone. I don't get no letters, baby. You don't call me on the phone. I'm getting kind of tired of singing this old lonesome song. I'm getting kind of thirsty. Think I'll drink another one. I'm getting agitated, getting tired and so. And I don't know the reason that you left me for.
You took too long.
That ain't what you said last week, baby.
You did it all wrong.
That ain't what you said last week
You
either.
didn't call me honey.
Honey,
You
honey,
ain't got no money.
I spent it all on you.
You are in suspense, 'cause you're so dense.
What'd I do? Since you've been gone, I got time to think.